Marcellus famously quipped and intoned in Hamlet, "Something is rotten in the state of Denmark." Well, something is also rotten, but a woman asking questions about her friend's assassination. Let me say this again, not untimely demise, slip and fall. Assassination, coordinated assassination in prime time. There's something rotten when a friend, in her inquiry regarding her friend's assassination, is treated like the criminal. And the people sitting on the cameras and the timelines and the power, they're treated like the victims. This doesn't make any sense. That is the upside-down world that Candace Owens is walking into. And her audience feels it in their bones. Listen to what is actually happening. This is incredible. A man beloved by a huge slice and contingent of humanity, and certainly the conservative movement, is gunned down in prime time before the world. And the official story arrives prepackaged and airtight before key witnesses are even questioned. Sound familiar? We've seen this movie before. And anyone who raises their hand and says, hold on this, is labeled hysterical, divisive, or worse, a crazed, hysterical conspiracy theorist. And don't forget, as Al Gore said, I'm not a conspiracy, not Al Gore, Gore Vidal, oh my God. As Gore Vidal says, I'm not a conspiracy theorist, I'm a conspiracy analyst. So when the one person with the courage and the platform and the guts to push back happens to be Candace, well, the response from people who claim to have loved Charlie, who loved him, their response looks less like grief and more like crisis management of the guilty, of the complicit. Now, her critics want this to be about ego, about her, about clout, about some petty turf war with Turning Point. It is not. It is about something much simpler and more serious. A friend died, slaughtered, shot like a dog in front of the movement, in front of the world, and the story doesn't add up. And the people who should be leading the charge toward the truth, the people that you would think would want to know the truth, are acting like they're afraid of what the truth might reveal. And what does that tell you? What does that tell you? You know what that tells you, right? I don't have to tell you. I think we know. Capiche? Now, start with the Turning Point offer. For weeks, the audience begged for one thing. Sit down with Candace on camera, and walk through the timeline. Bring your evidence, let her bring hers, and let the public watch two sides, hash it out, but also explain. Almost like just as a finding of fact, as a tribunal. I, as a prosecutor, as a lawyer, kind of know something about that. Instead, TPUSA took 3 months to respond. Then popped up in the middle of the night, announced a date she was never asked about, never coordinated with, slapped on a 24-hour deadline, and then pretended that a tweet at midnight was a sincere invitation. Come on. They must think we're really stupid. But we know that feeling before. Now, this is not how you book a guest. We know this, right? This is how you build a trap and then blame the person who wouldn't walk into it. This is precisely what's going on. And Candace told you plainly, her husband, who actually runs their household, which, by the way, a lot of people got all upset about this. I kind of somewhat find it refreshing in a strange way, but that's perhaps for another discussion. But her husband also has to consider security and travel and real-life obligations, immediately said no to December the 15th. Now, normal people understand that. We understand that. Everybody understands it. Families don't rewire overseas schedules in 24 hours because a media operation that had months to respond suddenly discovered the urgency. We got to talk now, right now, under these terms, right now. And to spin that as a declined invitation is insulting. It tells you exactly what TPUSA thinks of their own audience. You see, they assume that you're too emotional, too tribal, too committed, too checked out, too intellectually unavailable to notice the incredibly glaring contradiction between their public posture and their private behavior. we know better. Blake Neff, okay? Blake Neff then goes on air and announces in that condescending tone that can only be called condescending to be nice. He says he can't quite hide that in-person attendance is intuitively critical. I don't know if you caught that, because it's wonderful. He said he cannot quite suggest that or dance around the fact that apparently an in-person attendance is intuitively critical for authenticity. In person, while he says this, he's literally live streaming with a remote guest. They run remote feeds constantly. But suddenly, the woman who is asking the hard questions must be physically in their studio or she doesn't count. She cannot convey through viva voce testimony in any other platform other than physically sitting there within some particular degree of propinquity or nearness. What? We do Zoom cases in court. Murder cases have done Zoom. I mean, this is it. Come on. The insult is not subtle. Their message is clear. Candace is welcome as a prop, not as an equal. And it's fascinating, the symbology, the semiotics of this. Now, and then comes the tell. Neff admits the entire posture. The statement and the conditions were at the direction and approval, this is a quote, of Erica Kirk. Well, that matters because for many people, the last layer, the last fig leaf of good faith living over the whole mess was the belief that Charlie's widow did not understand how badly her new lieutenants were fumbling his legacy. And if she signed off on a statement that calls sincere critics Antifa and treats loyal donors as a nuisance, well, then the rot is not just in the comms shop, it's at the top. Okay? And that's what we're talking about. Candace Owens is not attacking Erica. She's doing the opposite. She's saying clearly, if Erica sits down on camera with someone who will not lie to her and opens the books emotionally and factually, that would change everything. That is not the language of a woman chasing clicks. That is the language, the sincere language of a woman who still wants to salvage something honorable out of a disaster. Now, zoom out for a moment. Zoom out to the thing that nobody in power really wants discussed. The pattern around September the 10th itself. And this is critical, so focus on this. Candace has watched more footage than any reporter, probably any human being. And by the way, not just any footage. Her friend slaughtered. Nobody, no citizen, no talking head, and possibly no one in law enforcement has seen more or analyzed more than she has. And by the way, for those people who suggest, well, she doesn't have any particular expertise, she's a layperson, well, what do you think jurors are? Jurors are the ones who decide life and death. They're the triers of fact. They review the same thing that she's doing. So don't give me this business about you have to be some special agent, in charge. No, you can look at common sense. See, that's one thing that we conspiracist types have been told for a long time, and it goes back to the old CIA memo. Tell people that it's too complicated, or that if it really was a conspiracy, that there's so many people involved. No. If it stinks, there's a good reason, because something's rotten. Now, she's not claiming omniscience. She's doing what any serious investigator does, and any serious investigator happens to be a friend. She looks for patterns and then tests them. And one pattern kept jumping out. A weird number of young men alone, fit, positioned at key vantage points, all wearing maroon. Okay? And when she casually asked someone at UVU whether maroon was a school color and was told no, that was not some grand reveal. It was a small fact that didn't match the picture. A little bit of the mosaic, a bit of a tile that didn't fit into the pastiche, okay? Then came the overreaction online. The sneering, the "you sound crazy" tone, the exact reaction you get every time a civilian stumbles too close to the truth, too close to something they were not meant to notice. And then came the emails from military and former military. Airborne units use maroon. Undercover teams use color of the day identifiers so they can instantly see who is on the op and who is not. People who have lived real operations said what she noticed fit what they know. That does not prove a theory or even a hypothesis. It does something more honest. It justifies asking more questions, which a lot of people don't want. By the way, color of the day. Here in New York City, the cops, especially in subway duty, this is absolute par for the course. It is axiomatic, to be obvious. Now, instead, let's go back. Instead of engaging that, okay, her detractors mock the color maroon and her intelligence, and while ignoring the fact of a more serious implication. If there were coordinated visual markers in that crowd, if certain people were positioned at specific angles and appear repeatedly in the most widely circulated footage, then the public deserves to know who directed that and why, or whether there was a direction in the first place. And the same thing applies to the TikTok user who claimed the FBI asked him to delete footage, and to the young man filmed standing upright while others ducked. All of this is critical. Look for things that don't make sense. Now, Candace didn't declare any of these people assassins. She didn't slap a motive on them or dox them. She did something much more restrained and much more responsible. She said out loud what any decent investigator would put in a notebook. This is odd. This doesn't make sense. I've been involved as a prosecutor and a lawyer for years, and whenever there's a homicide or an abduction or anything, or any kind of a bank heist, or even something involving people who embezzle, anything, shoplifting, they always ask, did you notice anything odd? Was there anything weird? Was the person who was there on time all the time late? Did she act different? Anything different? That's not proof of anything. That's step one. You don't have to be Barnaby Jones to know that. Ask your parents. But now, this doesn't match the rest. And I simply want to know more. You know why? Because I want to know more. And I don't have to explain to anybody why I want to know more. I don't have to ask permission. I'm curious, not incurious. Now, that alone now, the aforementioned, is now treated like a crime. Now, meanwhile, and this is the more interesting. Meanwhile, there are glaring institutional failures that nobody on the other side wants to talk about. To wit, why are key witnesses not subpoenaed? Why are there only 2 known videos of the shooter on the roof? Why does one of the men who filmed the roof say he never saw recoil, never saw a shot, and was never contacted again? Why is the burden of basic curiosity falling on a podcast host instead of on the agencies we pay to keep up with this very simple promise to keep us safe? And this is where the dark conspiratorial forces language stops sounding melodramatic and crazy and starts sounding descriptive. It's not that some omnipotent cabal controls every frame of footage. That's not it. It is that the same pattern we see everywhere appears again. A major event happens. The story is fixed quickly. The inconvenient parts are slowly walked or buried or excluded altogether. And those who ask about the gaps are mocked or pathologized or made to be some kind of a loon. That's so old now. It doesn't even mean anything. Eventually, the official version ossifies and calcifies and hardens and becomes putrescent. And anyone who still resists it is treated as some kind of a threat. Candace Owens refuses to bow to that. And for this, she's being treated not just as a critic of Turning Point, but as an enemy of the state. or the religion of trust narrative, or whatever you want to call it. Her detractors can't handle that she has backup from the very culture they assumed would never stand with her. Okay? When a rapper like The Game drops the assassination of Candace Owens and openly asks who really killed Charlie Kirk, he is not doing it to please conservative donors. He is doing it because his instinct for power and theater tells him what millions feel. The story stinks. It's rotten. It's putrid. And the reaction stinks more. Someone, or some people, are lying. And the only people talking straight, the only people willing to address it, are the ones being targeted. That is why her fan base loves her more fiercely with every attack. They don't get this. See, they see a woman who could have played it safe, cashed her checks, mouthed, the scripted platitudes, no hits, no runs, no errors, and instead chose the hard lane, the hard way to go, the lane where you say, no, I am not going to pretend the color revolutions and the intelligence games and the intel ploys and the domestic psyops that we export overseas never come home. I'm not going to pretend that my friend's death, her relationship to Charlie, is an isolated tragedy and not part of a pattern or a scheme of organized chaos that benefits the same permanent class every single time. That's what this is about. Candace Owens is not perfect. Surprise, surprise, alert the media. She would be the first to tell you that. But she is honest in a moment when honesty itself is treated as a security risk. That is why her detractors have to frame her as some emotional, attention-seeking, metrics-grabbing, unstable, uncompromised woman, some hysterical, termagant, losing her mind. We've heard this before. It is the only way to justify ignoring the content of what she is actually saying. So what now? What do you do? If you care about Charlie's legacy, if you care about the integrity of conservative institutions, if you care about living in a country where a murder is not treated like a branding challenge, then your responsibility, my dear friend, is simple. Refuse to be gaslit. Okay? Don't accept last-minute fake invitations dressed up and propped up as sincerity. Demand a real sit-down, or minimum, real answers. Support Candace when she goes live and walks through footage the mainstream and law enforcement will not touch. Share the clips that raise real questions instead of sanitized talking points. If you were at UVU and recognize faces, come forward. If you work inside media or government and know why certain people were elevated as witnesses and others were ignored, speak up. Do your duty. Speak up. You are a citizen of the world. You have a moral obligation. And most of all, make it clear to every organization that wants your money and your trust that there is a price for treating you like an idiot, okay? Withdraw your blind loyalty. Replace it with earned loyalty. Stand with the people who are willing to bleed reputationally for the truth. Not with the ones hiding behind careful statements, playing it safe, and midnight deadlines. Come on, man. As JoJo would say. Look, the dark forces at work here, and be not mistaken, this is not melodramatic. The dark forces at work here are not mystical. They are the very ordinary habits of unaccountable power. The only antidote is a public that will not be bullied back into silence and back into subservience and back into submission. Candace Owens will keep going. She has made that clear. The question now is, who joins her? Who flinches? Who chooses the comfort over a lie, over the pain of the truth? It is that simple. You know what to do, my friends. You know what to do right now. You know what's critical. You know how to act. In the meantime, listen to what I'm saying. Send this to other people. Ask Ask the questions I'm asking and others as well. Like this video. Do the necessary. Give me the metrics so I can show other people this type of commentary, this type of direction is important. Like the video. Subscribe. And follow me. Because this is bigger than just Candace. This is even bigger than Charlie Kirk. This is bigger than Talking Points, TPUSA. It's bigger than Erica Kirk. It's bigger than everything. We, as a society, owe it to demand that justice be held, felt, exhibited. We're going to do it. Because we've spent, and I've spent, since the Kennedy days, realizing that we don't go to the government for help. We do it ourselves. I'm going to tell you something. I'm going to leave you with something which sounds grotesque, but it's not meant to be. A friend of mine told me one time, I'll never forget. He said, remember, we can drown them in our urine. I said, wait, what is this? This sounds like this isn't that Steele dossier. I go, no. It means that there are so many of us. Our numbers are so immense, so huge, so brobdingnagian, so colossal. There are so many of us, we are so big that we can literally drown them in our urine. Don't forget, we have faith, we have strength, and we have power in numbers. And we are not going to go away. Now, my dear friend, I've got some questions for you in the commentary section, which I implore you to engage in. And I ask you right now to comment as you see fit.